Awakening was a lot of things, you know. There is one major thing that everyone's going to be talking about, including me in my review. The reintroduction of Super Saiyan 4. And while it's just one aspect of what made this installment of the series truly explosive, we have to at least address it in this discussion about the themes of Daima. Now it's all been made clear. Now we get why some folks can have an issue with this form being unearned, while arguably GT also kinda took it out of the blue. There it was connected to the whole Golden Uzaru and tail regrowing deal, which has shown that the whole process was rather painful, both physically and mentally. Now, some of you might say that Neva granting the power to Goku can go against his personality and core values, but let's not forget that if things get really bad, Goku's not beyond accepting a power boost if it really has to. He did that against King Piccolo and Beerus, where the situation looked rather hopeless, and besides, not only did we see the aforementioned ways of acquiring the form, but also the creators of Daima didn't want to make it Goku's quest about getting it. To put it bluntly, he doesn't have an arc in this saga of Dragon Ball. He's only there to enable other characters to have their own time in the spotlight. Shin, Glorio, the Margin brothers, because Do is starting to fanboy the Saiyan, even Gomah and Arinsu to some extent. It's their story, and you know what? True to the spirit of GT, Super Saiyan 4 doesn't automatically win, which I think is, respectful to the original form, when it alone wasn't enough to defeat Baby. We could see Do, Tamagami number 1, and Glorio, as well as Vegeta and Piccolo, contribute to the final fight. This episode also gives us the realization that the true main antagonist is the evil third eye. True, it's currently attached to Gomah, but at times you can really see that the trinket has a mind of its own, that it adapts and gets increasingly frustrated with the opponent and increases the stakes by increasing its power. Gomah, also true to the themes of this show, is getting used to this power and situation. It's kind of taken for a ride as well, because we can see how his body and variety of abilities grow with every episode. Just like our heroes who had to learn to adapt to their marketable children forms, just as Do is still figuring himself out. That Super Saiyan 3 mimicry thing, super cute. And so is Gomah adapting too, becoming stronger by the minute. The more and more they push him, the stronger he becomes. And it does feel like the eye sees it as something personal. And I do wonder if it will eventually detach itself from Demon King Gomah, leave him to rot, and either fight on its own or find a new host for the final encounter. Clearly, there's a certain competitive edge to its nature. To come back to Do though, and Ku for a moment, you can clearly see that these two are really pure and are working together with Goku, and it made them feel excited. Not only that, but the older of the brothers seemed really excited that he found a way to power up his younger sibling. His way of supporting and cheering Do on. It's very unique, and honestly, you rarely see a character in Dragon Ball that doesn't seek personal glory. They're almost too pure for Arinsu to bear, which makes us think that they might either switch sides or be forced to do something against their will, and they'll be at a crossroads. And speaking of the good doctor, ever an opportunist, she finally pressed the Gloria button and in her mind is ready to fulfill her wish and become the Supreme Demon King. While we have no doubt that our blue friend had a very different thing in mind, because the wording of the spell does suggest that we might see our heroes in their adult forms for the final confrontation, she still thinks that we are at the moment of her personal triumph. We do wonder though, what is her leverage against Glorio, and if he is going to see the light of the next day? There always can be a caveat of a Margin killed in the demon world being unable to be wished back, so Glorio might be gone. It's a common demonic trope in fantasy and fiction, that in order to permanently destroy a demon or a devil, you need to do so on their home turf. And Dragon Ball has that whole killed by a demon cannot be revived thing going on, and has for a very long time, so maybe it's the route they're about to take. It kind of goes with our themes if you think about it. I think on an emotional level, it would give us some sense of stake and peril that the franchise as a whole really needs more of and has been desperately lacking. We are still convinced that Arinsu hasn't said her final word yet, and might still have something up her sleeve. One of those things might be one of the final Chekhov's guns of Daima that hasn't quite blasted off yet, the fusion bug. Yes, Goku's bag appears to have been lost and we're never going to see it again, but we do believe that someone will use it, and it could be either Ku or Do, even in the forceful manner. I mean, it could always be Vegito, but that would be really the most boring outcome in our opinion. We've grown to like and care about the Margin brothers. We've realised that they are really innocent and they're not truly evil. So it would have been a rather unfortunate tragedy to see them turned into something evil. We like where they're going right now, and Arisu seems like someone who would be capable of turning those precious little puffcakes into a weapon of mass destruction for the final chapter of the battle, even if they don't want to. Oh, and also, predictably, we have gigantic Gomah. Yeah, we could see this coming. But hopefully this isn't the last thing the evil Third Eye is going to do with the Demon King, who again, rather impressively, is showing far more resilience than we ever expected from him. We thought he would have been a complete doormat, but no. Is he the most interesting villain in the series, though? No. But he is serviceable enough, and with the constant back and forth between the baddies, he can be quite entertaining. Oh, and his Death Ball-esque thingy, that was kinda cool. I love how all of the effects of his spells resemble the holographic technology that we saw in his palace, his little shield and screen. Some very needed visual tuning to the tired formula that we are used to seeing as well. And the I-beam, that was pretty neat as well. Oh, what else? Oh, of course, there's Neva. Honestly, he has become the Whis of this show. Is there anything this guy cannot do? And to be fair, this is quite amusing every time when he does something. And one of the biggest hints of how insanely powerful Neva is was his Porunga being able to just flick giant Gomah away with a single finger. Remember, the power of the dragon scales with its master, and to be fair, this got us thinking that Neva is functionally a Namekian god, not by title, but sheer power. But still, we do subscribe to our notion that he's basically Toriyama's own OC. But magically speaking, he might be one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful magic wielder in the entire series, maybe even stronger than Moro. I'm pretty sure that Beerus could at least have some fun when sparring with Ultimate Porunga. And to make sure that we won't be getting misunderstood here, we do not exactly suggest that Neva or his creation is more powerful than Beerus, but based on their interaction with other characters, it does seem that we are meant to interpret them on the divine level. And speaking of the dragon, it's not Dorusi after all. We got trolled as Dororusi was merely a sequence of words to open the barrier. On one hand, it is kinda sad that this is just another Porunga, but on the other, yeah, it would make sense that the Dragon of Namek would be named to honor this one, the OG. It does seem to add up, you know? Especially with Neva and his creation being almost mythical in nature. What is his true relationship with Rimus? Because remember that guy? Because if Rimus is named after slime, Suraimu, then the term Neba Neba, which means sticky or slimy, doesn't only connect to slugs and snails. Is Neva a disciple of Rimus? His creation? A guise, perhaps? Will we find out that the original Namek is merely one of many faces that the creator of the multiverse has? It is possible. But I think it would take away a bit from his character. But still, I can seriously see a short scene at the end with Neva reporting to Rimus about his small adventure with Goku and co. Maybe the creator of the universe will take some personal interest in them, see what they do. Who knows, right? But we were talking about today the themes in Daima, and it is time to unravel them, as Neva is a perfect vehicle for that. As we have told you many times on this channel, we do see the Elder Namekian as an example for Toriyama himself. He can easily be interpreted that way, as his actions are borderline meta. He even sings the Makufushigi adventure theme when the gang meets him and he's all being silly, while still faking his senility. Much like Toriyama liked to tell everyone how lazy and forgetful he was, undermining his true credit and merits, he literally winks to the audience a couple of times, and while we are supposed to believe that he does this to the characters in the series, no, there are some hints that he is being incredibly meta and he's winking to us. He is never bothered by anything for too long, showing that he can act out more than just his senility. And he has opened the demon world to us after a long time, just like Toriyama has finally provided us with a ton of lore regarding the Dragon World. Something that he was really vague about for years, and the fans were starting to bug him about, in fact always bugging him about. He also seemed to be aware of what was going to happen. when he would awaken Goku's genetic potential, which may mean that he has seen this form before. So yes, Neva is the key character to see the meta character of Daima. While Superhero did it in the form of story bits, connecting the Red Ribbon Army to all three sagas, Daima is doing this by adding GT's legacy to the mix and providing lore context. At this point, it isn't important if it's supposed to be in its own timeline or not. I am pretty sure that all the introduced lore is meant to be relevant for the previous installments. As we have said before, Daima is all about adapting to change. There are so many characters that have to do that. In fact, Goku and co are the change inside the demon world, due to how long the margins live for. Their existence is very static, and those few days have shaken all the realms to great effect. As we've said before, our cast has to adapt to new situations, both heroes and villains. And while Gomah was unwilling to do so on his own, the evil third eye is effectively doing it for him. Drew doesn't know his true potential. Goku and his friends were adapting to the kids' bodies. Well, if Glorio's incantation is anything to consider, they won't have to do so anymore. Finally, Daima is about vibes more than a story. I know that sounds incredibly vague and a little cringe, but that's the truth. It's about being in the moment, in the demon realm or in the fight. While, yeah, the narrative is kinda slow and quite honestly could have been a movie, there is no denying that there are some truly awesome moments in terms of simply being in the world. From episode 18, that is the only installment of this series, perhaps in the entire Dragon Ball franchise, that makes use of every single minute of its broadcast time to cozy moments, like us being with our heroes in the taverns, spending times with the inhabitants of the demon realm. After all these years, I feel that Toriyama and the other creative minds behind the series have let us get a little deeper into the world and wanted us just to hang out there, you know, experience what it's like to be in the Dragon World, just be there. We've craved this for years, to learn more, to have more world building, and yes, it did drag at times and it had its low points, episode 16 being the lowest, but we do really vibe with the series, you know. And I do understand that not everyone does, that it's not everyone's cup of tea, and sometimes my absolute devotion to Daima can seem a little childish, but this is a love letter to the franchise, at times even being slightly self-aware and tongue-in-cheek, especially with Goku's almost interruption of the lore monologue from Nahare. Is the inclusion of Super Saiyan 4 fan servicey? Oh, extremely. But the presentation was just so stunningly beautiful that we got on the hype train hook, line and sinker. Also, I feel that Daima has introduced enough new elements to justify that one bit of self-indulgence, you know. We have 2 episodes left, according to rumours, and I am really curious how open they will be. While everything points at something self-contained, while every following interview with Iyoku makes me think that we won't have to wait for another announcement for too long, certainly not for Daima, we just, haven't I, really like this show, you know? And once it's over, we will speak in even greater detail as to what it meant for us. But for now, I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later. 2 more to go.